my early drinking days were the most Queens, New York thing you could ever imagine. Me and my friends would walk into a bodega, and we would ask the guy for beer, and he'd walk us into the refrigerator in the back, like a walk-in refrigerator. We'd hand him cash like we were buying drugs. He would hand us a bunch of 40s, and he'd wrap them up, and he would sneak us out. And that's how we would drink. We were like 13 years old, and we would just walk around Queens. We'd just drink our 40 ounces. We'd throw them at the wall. We'd all get really drunk, and somebody would get fingered. Today, Ken Krantz and I are talking about our early drinking and drugging days here on the show, and this, like getting fingered by Steve without lube, yes, it was me who got fingered, is a bit too much. We've not done a show together. Do you drink?
Yeah, I'll drink. I'll drink at work.
Yeah, you drink.
I like telling people, like, I love having a job that it's perfectly acceptable to be drunk at.
Right.
Like, if you're professional and funny and you can be drunk and show up on time and not run the light, nobody cares.
Yeah. My rule. This is a rule because I learned early on by having shows where I went on drunk and fucking shit the bed. My rule is I start drinking once I'm on stage, and then I can keep drinking.
Yeah.
I don't do like 3-4 drinks before I go up. I just feel like it makes me less sharp. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I just want to be at my sharpest, and then I could just drink. Like, I'll drink on stage.
Yeah.
If I'm doing a long enough set, I'll have multiple drinks on stage. But I don't want it to, you know what? I feel like I'm one of those guys who just gets tired when I get drunk. And I don't want to. I'm trying to keep the energy up, and I feel like if I drink 3 drinks before I go up, I don't have the energy I had.
Oh, see, I'm like, it does the opposite for me.
Are you like a hyper drunk?
It like gets me like chatty. Sometimes it will get me looser.
Well, how many drinks in till it goes the other way?
Oh,
where's your turn? I mean, it's the amount of drinks plus the time, of course.
3-4 drinks, I'm good, and then it'll go the other way. 5, 6,
5, 6, 7, 8, 9. yeah. It just keeps.
But I don't. It never goes anywhere bad. I just stay chatty. But
yeah, I think we talked about this. I'm also the kind of drunk. Like, my personality doesn't change when I'm drunk. I just become first few drinks, up, and then next few drinks down.
Right.
But it's still me. I'm not. I don't veer left and right. Like, I don't become a different person when I drink. Yeah. I just go, maybe I'm a little more chatty, maybe I'm a little less chatty. But when the come down happens, this is even when I was younger. It's worse now than when I'm older because everything hurts. My whole fucking body hurts. But like when I was younger, I still was this way. Like, if I drank too much, I just would sink into the couch at the party.
Yeah.
I'm that kind of drunk. I'm just like, I'm just going to chill here in my beer.
Which is fine. I
might fall asleep on the couch. That kind of drunk.
Which goes back to what we were saying earlier. It's like, even drunk, just fly under the radar. Like, don't be the drunk that calls attention to you and your group.
I was never the rowdy drunk, but I had friends. When I started drinking, remember, I grew up with a bunch of fucking Goombas.
Yeah.
Right? I grew up with these fucking amped up, gel in the hair, gold chain fucking Guidos, right? These motherfuckers loved to fight. So we'd go out drinking underage, I had my brother's ID at a pretty young age. I had my brother's 4 years older than me. So once I was 17, I had his ID, but then I also we'd get some of the chalk. Remember when people chalked IDs?
Yeah. Vaguely,
you remember that?
Yeah.
So they would take like a chalk and they would mark your ID and change your number into a younger number. Like, they could change your fucking 5 to a 2. Like, if it was 85, it was 82. That kind of thing. And so they would chalk your ID, and if you looked close, a bad chalk job, you could tell it wasn't the print. But sometimes the chalk job was really good. I had someone who was really good at it. So I was going out with these. First of all, I started drinking at 12. Yeah, that was my age when I started drinking. But now I'm talking a few years later, like going out to like nightclubs and stuff in Queens and Brooklyn, going into the city. My friends were just amped up. They were just like always, it was like, it's like they had all this like teenage aggression, and they either needed to get laid or they were going to punch someone in the face. Like, all that energy had to go somewhere. Yeah. It was either coming out in blood or cum. it had to release. They had to release some sort of fluid. It was like it was trapped in their body.
I never understood that, like wanting to fight people. That's
right?
never ever been in my DNA. I don't think maybe I had a fist fight in junior high. That was the last.
Any fight I've ever been
last
in.
Time.
Any fight I've ever been, I'm like, God damn it! Like I've gotten into some, but like. Always very reluctant.
I've always been able to talk myself out of jams.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like me too, but when you're alone.
Yeah.
Right? Like if I get into a confrontation with somebody now, I could talk it down or make a joke or or I just fight with words, right?
Yeah.
But it's going to be words. But when you're one of 10 fucking Guidos in a nightclub and someone decks someone, fists just start flying, People are getting thrown around. There's just fucking hair gel slicking the floor, and people are just getting hit. I got jumped at a fucking nightclub once and went tumbling down the stairs. And I remember I was borrowing my brother's white button-down shirt, and all these kids just started fucking stomping on me. And I went home and I had all foot marks all over. My brother was like, "What'd you do to my shirt?" I'm like, "How about asking me if I'm okay?" "What'd you do to my shirt?" I'm like, "These are clearly footprints of all different sizes. Do you want to ask me if my ribs are broken?"
That'd be funny if he kicked the shit out of you for
you fucking idiot. I drank a lot at a young age. When did you start drinking? I started drinking at 12.
I started drinking probably around 12 or 13. Yeah. Like, I had all these older siblings and they were into partying. And it seemed very cool to me at a young age.
Oh, right. I have one older brother, but you had so many older siblings that it's probably easier for you because you had their shit to get to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would start smoking weed at a very young age.
How old?
12, 13.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember the first. I held on weed for a while. For some reason, in my head, I thought like, "Oh, that's drugs, right?" Because we grew up in there. Like there was, and so I held out till I was a little older, and I was finally comfortable with it. I was like maybe 15, I think. I want to say when I tried weed for the first time.
Yeah,
but we were doing drinking in basements. That's what we were doing. We were hanging out like our friends had. Like 12 years old, we'd go to someone's house, we'd steal a bottle of liquor from their liquor cabinet, and we'd sneak it down to the basement. We'd all sit down in the basement. We'd play pool and listen to music and play spin the bottle. All dudes, no. And we were just like all get drunk off our parents' liquor. That was like our own. That was how we got, because we didn't have any money either. We were 12.
I remember the first time I got drunk, I was probably 13 or 14, like really drunk. My parents used to own a company in Bayonne, New Jersey, which was just one of the worst towns maybe ever. But
still,
if you go back and watch episodes of The Honeymooners from the 50s,
yeah, sure,
they make jokes about Bayonne, and those jokes still hold up. Like they're still on the money,
right.
But my parents owned this company, and they took all the kids for the company Christmas party, which was at a bar, and they decided it would be all right to let me drink if I wanted, because they were all there, and I'm just at a bar in Bayonne, and I can't remember what I was drinking,
right?
But I got drunk, to the point where the bartender said something, and I was like, and I pointed at the bartender. I was like, "This motherfucker knows what I'm talking about." And I'm like 13 or 14. But it was like,
"This motherfucker."
Yeah, but it was like a very friendly, this motherfucker. It wasn't like this,
Yeah.
But he took it aggressively and wanted to fight me. But I guess didn't realize that I was just a little kid.
Yeah.
And somebody that worked for my parents had to step in and be like, he's just a kid. He doesn't know what he's saying.
Yeah.
Please don't take him outside and kick his ass.
Also, maybe don't serve him drinks.
It was the 80s. There was no talk of that. Yeah.
Yeah, because no one even thought that part was weird.
Right.
That dude, that is 80s in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Is that nobody was upset that the bartender was giving you drinks. They just didn't want him to kick your ass.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, don't hit the 13-year-old. Could you just get him another beer?
Yeah. Yeah. You'd be like, why can't you be like the other 12-year-olds and not call me a motherfucker?
Right. But there,
that was the
other drunk 12-year-olds.
But that was the first time I remember being like drunk. And I couldn't have been more than 13.
Yeah, I was 12. We used to just like sneak down, like let's say like a vodka and like a juice or a soda or something, or like whatever we were doing. It was all I think it was all clear liquors. That was the only thing. Whiskey and all that shit. Cause I'm a bourbon drinker now, but like whiskeys and all that stuff, cognacs, brandies, it was all gross to us. Because you would open the bottle and that's such a strong smell,
Yep.
And you'd be like, oh no, I don't want that. Like, like something that was a little less obvious that you could just hide in like a juice or a drink. And then that's what we did. But because of that, we were drinking so much juice and soda as we were drinking the liquor that we inevitably all fucking throw up.
Yeah.
Because it's just, that's what will get you sick, right? You're like doing these like sugary drinks. And that was the self-discovery. You had to learn what you liked.
Yep. I remember like we used to drink before school sometimes.
Yeah.
I remember going.
Weed before school became a thing when I was in high school. It was like smoking before school.
We also had my senior year, they would let you leave for lunch. And I lived a mile from the high school. So I would just pile into a friend's car, go back to my house, smoke weed on the deck, and then go back to school.
So wait, what age were you drinking before school?
We did it a couple. I don't want to make it like it was like but I remember it happening like twice, maybe 2 or 3 times. But I remember like we were talking about like being able to hold yourself together. Yeah. I was able to do that even at a young age because I remember doing it with like 4 or 5 of my buddies, and they all got popped throughout the day. And I was the only one. Like you would hear,
everyone else
all of a sudden you would hear over the announcement, like, "And so and so come to the office," and I would be like, "Oh,
smell
shit.
maybe though, or the
maybe
behavior.
or maybe the way they were acting. I don't even remember."
I was saying is liquor, liquor's a harder thing to hide.
Yeah,
that's why when you have like when you're let's say you're at an office, everyone knows the alcoholic. Not everyone knows the fucking pothead,
right?
Or any of the other drug habits, right? Like everyone knows the alcoholic because it's coming through their fucking pores. The liquor's a hard one to hide because it has a scent.
Yeah.
And depending on what liquor you're drinking, it has a strong scent.
Yeah, and when you're 15 or 16, you're probably not holding it as well as you might imagine.
Right. You're slurring. Maybe you smell something, if a teacher is like, here's a slur and then smells the thing, like, oh, is that kid fucking drunk right now? Is that 15-year-old kid fucking drunk in my class? It's got to be so fucked up as a teacher. Like, is that kid fucking drunk? And then it became, there was a period of time for me and my friends where we were getting sloppy drunk at like Sweet 16s. I remember going to Sweet 16s, like our friends, from school. Their Sweet 16s were happening, and I remember I had this one friend, Pasquale, big dude, really big dude, and he just because he was so big, his jacket was really big, and because his jacket was really big, his inside pocket was really big. And he just had a bottle of Bacardi in his jacket. Nobody saw. He was a really big dude, right? And he walked in, and he's had the whole time he's at this party. No one even knew he had a full fucking bottle of Bacardi in his jacket, and he just was there. And then he was at one point. I'm sitting next to him at the table, and he just like opened it. And I was like, "Oh fuck yeah!" And it's Bacardi, and it's clear.
Yeah.
So he's just pouring it in our water glasses,
and it's so gross.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
Super high proof, like really strong shit. And we're just drinking Bacardi. And then that was the night I think I'm 15 at the time. I was out of Sweet 16. I was thinking I'm 15. And then he's like, "You want to go outside and smoke some weed?" And I was like, "I'm going to finally smoke some weed." And I remember it was like such an event for me. I was so excited. And we went out, we smoked weed. Now we're fucking hammered and we're smoking weed. And one of the kids who was with us fucking passed out on the dance floor. Just fucking ate shit, like just fucking was dancing and fucking drunk, and then just passed out. We all got fucking caught because then it was like, okay, everyone's drinking here. Like then it was like a very, I think it's for the parents that were like, oh, wait a minute. All those rowdy kids aren't just being rowdy fucking 15-year-olds. I think they're all fucking drunk, It started very many years of drinking with your friends and somebody not being able to hold it and it becoming like a big event.
Yeah.
Like, we got to get this kid to, like, there was one party we had in Greenpoint in Brooklyn, and we had rented, this is like a movie scene type party thing. This is like like we rented out this Polish, it was like a dance hall type thing, or like a catering hall type thing. It was like a private room. This old Polish man owned it. And one of our friends, like, knew about the place one day. He's like, hey, can we rent? The guy didn't ask questions. He didn't ask what age you were and all this stuff. A bunch of fucking, I think we were like 16 at the time. We rented out this hall. We invited everyone in our fucking high school. We hired a DJ. We got kegs and liquor bottles. And we just threw this fucking rager at like all 16-year-olds getting hammered, right? Somehow fucking cocaine enters the party and there's people smoking weed out. And this thing grows from like us being, you know, a bunch of 16-year-olds like having a few beers at the keg, because that's how it started. Yep. Everyone's just pouring their beers out. There's music playing. We're like, oh, this is pretty. We threw a pretty cool fucking party. And this thing got so out of fucking control. It was just at one point, I remember I was drunk, but I felt like the whole room was just moving. But I think it literally was like people were just jumping and dancing, raging and fighting. I mean, this thing was so out of control. And I remember the owner at some point, I think he might have lived like attached to the thing. Came in, and I remember, I'll never forget the sight of him. He had shorts and a tank top and slippers on. He was like late at night, and he came in and he was like looking around the room like horrified, and it was just all these 60. I think he was like, oh shit. And I don't know if he called the cops or if someone else in the neighborhood called the cops, but all of a sudden this thing, 10 minutes before the cops came in, one of my friends passes out. Fucking passes out. He's like babbling. He's throwing up on himself. He's like, blah, 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 blah. He like alcohol poisoning. Like he was really drank so fucking much, and he was just drinking like straight liquor, I think, or whatever. And the cops come in and they're raiding the place, and it was so stupid at that age. Like instead of going like, "Hey, we need help," right? Because that you know that's what we should have done was told the cops that he passed out.
Oh no.
Right?
That's insane, crazy talk.
Well, as a kid. As a kid. But now thinking back to it, it's like that kid needed to go to the hospital. And he actually did. He got his stomach pumped. You like, you know, so we just carried him out like a fucking carpet.
No, I would rather listen, at 16, this kid's gonna die before I call the cops.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to get grounded.
Yeah. You're all gonna before you call the cops, you're like, should we just
I remember
where are we putting the body?
We did you ever get into like psychedelics?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of my friends did. I wasn't as into it myself, but we had a lot of like mushroom nights and shit like that. I'd put them in a Whopper. I guess we always put them in a burger.
In high school, I would take a lot. It
fucked me too much. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved it back then, but in high school, I would take a lot of acid.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and and like I said, like I always had, between both sets of parents living right around the corner and constantly traveling, I was always good for every weekend. I probably had a house to myself. And
so did you throw parties at your house?
I would throw a lot of parties. My older siblings would throw parties, and I learned from them. Like I learned how to not get caught.
Right.
And they were like ahead of their times when they would throw parties. I was too young back then, but they would take Polaroids of the entire room. And then they would take all the art off the walls. They would take all of the shit off the tables.
That's smart.
Anything breakable would get locked in the study.
Yeah.
And then you'd empty the house out. You would just have like the skeleton of, all the valuables.
Yeah,
nobody could break
everything. We went
and
back.
then the next day after everybody was gone, you bust out the Polaroids. You put everything back together.
Yeah.
They were actually,
That's fucking smart.
It was like genius.
How old are your siblings? The ones that are doing that, how old are they at this point?
They were in high school,
Right.
Junior high. So I learned from a young age, like, you can actually.
As your brain develops and you get into high school, that's what you apply your intelligence to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like being a criminal mastermind.
Yeah. Any strategic thought, which is like at the age where you start forming that part of the brain, right? Like you start like thinking really deeply. You think about consequences before you take the action. But as a high school kid, that's all you use it for. It's how to prevent yourself from getting caught.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so fun. Like, and if you had applied that same energy into like doing homework or like studying, you'd be so much farther ahead in life right now.
Yeah.
But first time, I have a bunch of friends over. It's the first time like one of us has taken acid before and everyone else is a newbie.
Yeah.
And we all take acid and I'm loving it.
Right.
But we got this one friend who starts complaining about his heart. He's like, I've something weird with my heart. And we were like, dude, you're on acid. Nothing. There was nothing weird going on with your heart today. Before you're on, just fucking stop trying to bum us out. And then he was like, no, guys. And then he was like, call an ambulance.
That's also kid logic. There was nothing before, so there's nothing now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were fine 3 hours ago. What can go wrong in 3 hours? Right. And I was just like, dude, I'm not calling an ambulance. Like, are you out of, like, my parents are in the Poconos. You think they're they want to come home and find out that 5 dudes on acid?
My dad is naked in a champagne hot tub right now. There is no fucking way.
And we were just like clowning him. We were like, there's nothing wrong with your heart, you pussy, you know? And then he got through it. Listen, and then he got through it. But he was still complaining about it the next day. Like his mom took him to the doctor, and they found some shit wrong with his heart. I think that this kid could have died at my house on acid.
Right, and of course, as an adult, you know now that if you have a problem, like, you know, you were like, oh, there's nothing wrong with you before, there's nothing wrong with you now. You now know if you have a predisposed thing, any of those things could accelerate. Your heart issues, or your, you know, any neurological thing or anything like that. Yeah,
and it was I guess it was the early 90s. You could still call your friends fags. We were just like, stop being a fag. We're not.
You're such a fucking pussy. Everyone, because that's what you did to everything. So you just that's how peer pressure worked. Back then, at least. Was just like you got called a bad name, and then you were like, all right, I'll fucking do it. Whatever. Yeah, my heart feels like it's going to explode, but I'll still do it.
And then we just got a phone call from this kid who was like, I can't do acid with you guys anymore. I got a bad heart. We were like, holy shit.
Oh, my God. We almost just killed Tim. What the fuck, man? Yeah.
I remember once my girlfriend in high school, who's now my wife.
Yeah.
She lived about 20 minutes from me, and her parents were like real strict with curfews and shit. And she had a pretty early curfew. So I had like kind of 2 separate lives. I had like my time with her, where it was the 2 of us just spent so much time together. But then once her curfew hit, then I would go see my boys and my friends. I would have this whole like wild party side to me.
Oh, okay.
And so one night,
it's really like you had 3 different lives, because then you also had to at home lie to your parents about what you were doing.
So one night, my parents are out of town, and we all were gonna take acid at my dad's house, and she lives 20 minutes away, and I leave the front door open for my friends. So the plan is, I drop her off, I take the tab of acid once I drop her off. And that way, by the time I get home, and they're going to show up and let themselves in. I can't remember why this 20-minute window was so tight and why we needed it so bad. But like, I don't know why I couldn't.
I bet there was nothing.
Oh yeah, there was just, I just didn't want to wait. Yeah.
You're like, I want to be high the second I see you.
Yeah. So the plan is they let themselves in. They take the acid. I drop her off, take the acid, drive my dad's car back home. So all's going according to plan. Me and my girlfriend go out. She runs up to the porch. I take the acid and I start, I hit reverse and I'm pulling out of her driveway. And all of a sudden she comes running down the driveway, banging on the window. And I'm like, what's up? She goes, forgot my keys. I'm locked out. She says, will you stay here and wait with me till my parents get home? They're at dinner.
Oh, no.
So I'm like,
that time bomb. You're just fucking waiting as it's.
So now I'm like, are they going to be home in like 5 or 10 minutes? She was like, no. I was like, all right. And then I'm like weighing like, all right, like, am I doing this, or am I going to tell her no and deal with the repercussions of
leaving her outside her house? Because that's what would have happened. You would have left her there, and she would have to wait outside her house at night.
Yep. And then her parents would have come home and been like, well, how come this boy didn't keep
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, of course I'll wait. And
so that's what you decided.
There's no cell phones. I can't call anybody to tell them what's going on.
Right. So your
I
friends
couldn't
now,
even ask her to use, first off, even if I was able to convince her to like, hey, I got to call my dad's house, even though there's nobody there. to like let my friends know. Like I couldn't tell her that she had no idea there was people.
You didn't know. Yeah, you couldn't let her know what was about to happen. Nor would your friends have answered your phone.
They wouldn't have answered my phone.
Right. It's not their house, so they wouldn't have answered.
So I end up we sit outside for a good 40 minutes, and now I'm like, every noise that I hear, I'm like, what the fuck was that? And I'm looking around like, did you hear an owl? She's like, what are you talking about? And then her parents show up from the Chinese food restaurant. They invite me, and I'm like, no, I'm going to get there. Like, don't be ridiculous. Come in. They come in, and they're offering me leftovers.
Yeah, but dude, that high? Chinese food sounds pretty good.
No, actually, like... Psychedelics does something where it's like you don't even want to eat.
Right. You just need to be in your own little cocoon.
But even not on acid, eating someone else's leftovers, I would be like,
oh, it was leftovers.
Yeah,
right,
yeah. Like they'd come back, but I just remember her mom like dumping out like lo mein or whatever, and I'm looking at the plate, and the noodles are like slithering around like worms.
What the fuck?
And they're like, "Are you sure you don't want a bite?" And I'm like, "Oh fuck! Like I'm gonna throw up if I." And they kept me there, and I got out as soon as I could. But now it became, well, I've never driven on acid. I've only had my license a few months.
Right.
Like I'm not.
Right.
I could drive high pretty good, but acid. So now I'm driving.
No, you can't drive on it. Yeah, high on weed and drinking distort you, but acid creates another world. It's a fucking AI filter.
Yeah,
it's an AR filter that's in front of your life.
I white knuckled it back.
Yeah,
probably doing 15 miles an hour the entire time. I remember going down this street and like an animal darted out, like a possum or something, darted out in the street. And I was like, I didn't hit the brakes. I was too, like, I can't change whatever I'm doing.
Right. Yeah, I've got one mode right now.
But I remember, and this was probably just the acid, but I remember like the light hit this thing and I saw the look in its eye. And it was like, I think it knew it was about to die. I picture, like, I know I mentioned Phil Hartman before, but like, like, that his wife probably like tapped him on the forehead with her gun, and he probably opened his eyes and had one second like,
shit.
Oh, it's over.
Oh, this
and then
is it.
And then she shot him. I feel like that's what happened with this fucking. Like it looked up and then I hit it. I like felt the thud.
Oh, you went over it. Okay,
yeah. I heard it squealing, and maybe it was the acid, but I thought I heard it squealing.
I don't think any of these things really happened. I think all these years later, this is however many fucking years later, and I think not. I mean, you probably ran over a possum,
right? Oh yeah.
I just think a dumb fucking possum was like.
Yeah,
it just saw things like, and then you fucking trampled it, and you were like,
I'm putting so much pressure on this.
You're like, it looked back at its wife, and it said, Patrice, please take care of the kids. And then she was like, I'll always love you. You created like a Notebook scene in your head.
It was the scariest drive home.
Yeah.
But I did it. Like I pulled it off.
Yeah, man, driving drunk. Dude, like I remember drunk, high, whatever, I remember getting really fucked up at a party, and my friends were all really fucked up, and I had my brother's car. I'll never fucking forget this. Is silver fucking Nissan Altima that he fucking loved, and and he let me borrow the car for the night, and he was like, and he said to me, he's like, "Are you gonna drink tonight?" I was like, "I'll have a beer or two." He's like, please be careful. Yeah, you have my car. It's not about your health, but like you have my car.
Yeah.
Please just be careful with my car. I was like, of course. And I'll never forget it. I had like 5 dudes packed in the car driving back home from this party that was, I think it was like in Long Island. I was living in Queens at the time. So it was like maybe like a half hour or something. And one of my friends was like, I gotta throw up. I was like, do not throw up in my brother's car. And I thought it was a good idea to just, as I was driving, open the window. So he just sticks his fucking head out the window. And I hear, ho! We're on the like Long Island Expressway. And he's he's probably spraying cars behind him. But it's pretty late at night, so maybe not that many cars. And I'm oblivious because I'm fucking drunk. I am driving and I'm hammered. And I'm like really trying to concentrate. And it's like one of those things. Again, I'm one of those drunks that like I kind of have my wits about me. Bad decision making maybe, but I'm not like a completely other person. I remember going like being like, look at the lines on the fucking street. Just stay in those fucking lane. I remember like thinking through it, just stay in the lane. And I'm trying and I'm having a hard time. I get everyone home safe. I drop off 5 dudes at their individual houses. I get home. I park the car. It's like that scene in Wolf of Wall Street where he has one recollection of how he drove home.
Oh, on the Quaaludes?
Yeah, right. And then they do the flashback and he's fucking knocking into everything. So I get home. I fucking go upstairs. I fucking throw up myself. I held in my throat the whole time. I remember my mother knocked on the door. She's like, "You're right." I was like, "I had bad White Castle." That's what I thought. I don't know why I thought that. I just didn't want to tell her I was drunk. And then, of course, she probably knew I was fucking drunk. I was like, "Okay. All right, feel better. There's water. Drink water." Just went to bed. I go to sleep. I wake up, and my brother's fucking knocking on my bedroom door. "Get the fuck up!" And I'm like, "What? But his car is parked in the middle of the goddamn street. Like I didn't even pull into the spot.
Oh, that's so funny.
It's like, or I pulled in and then pulled right out. It kind of actually looked like it was like diagonal. So I must have pulled in and then kind of turned it back out and then like left it.
Yeah.
I just put it in park. Like, good. Looks good to me. Went out and the whole fucking side of the car and inside the car covered in vomit.
Oh.
From that window open, friend throwing up out of the side of the car. He was streaking the side of the car.
Yeah.
I was like, I was so goddamn proud of myself. I was like, that night, I'm like, dude, I fucking got home. I didn't think I was going to make it. I was drunk. My friends are drunk. Car's good. I'm good. Everything's good. Everyone knew what happened the next morning. Everyone in my house knew what happened the next morning. They're like, dude, what did you fucking do last night? I couldn't even just lie and said I had a sick friend. Yeah. The way I parked showed that I was even fucking drunk. So, now my parents find it. Like, that's the kind of shit. And drunk driving was something I did up until probably all before legal drinking age.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, all in my teens. I did it all the time.
Oh, in college. I don't know. I don't like, you just think you're invincible.
Yeah, you really do.
But I also...
You always think you have it under control. If I just concentrate...
But it's kind of true with some people. Like there's
some people, some people can, but
I almost feel like there should be a drunk driving test. Like you should be able to apply for a drunk driving license. Then I'm not saying it's like carte blanche, have as much to drink as you want.
There is not a more alcoholic statement in the goddamn world than you should be able to qualify to drive drunk.
Not carte blanche, not like as much as you want, but listen, you can be over the legal limit. You
like you get one of those breathalyzer things that you get in your car if you get a DUI, but it doesn't stop you from driving. It just goes, all right, you have an hour.
Yeah.
You have an hour. Just don't. This is where you got to stop. Like the car gives you a talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, all right, I'm going to let you do this, but you got to keep the windows open the whole time.
You know what, too? I grew up, my dad is a drinker, and he was always drunk, right? And my dad drove drunk. My dad didn't just drink then drive. My dad drank while he drove.
Yeah.
Like my dad would, off the boat Guinea with his fucking cup of wine in a paper cup in the fucking cup holder of the car. And he was like, I started drinking. Now you asked me to take you somewhere. I'm not going to stop drinking for you. That was parent mentality back then too. It's like, I was doing something. Okay, kid? You want me to take you to your friend's house? Fine, I'll be a good dad. I'll take you to your friend's house, but this fucking wine's coming with me. He's drinking his wine in the seat. You know what I mean? Like that shit happened all the time. Sometimes in the middle of the day, clearly, he's an alcoholic. But like in the middle of the day, he was like, I was home drinking. You called me. The fuck you want, dude? I'm drinking. I'm still drinking. It's rude of you to stop me because I was drinking. I remember... So like another part of drinking it with my growing up was, I mentioned it earlier, like with these Guidos, we wanted to go to nightclubs. We wanted to go party at bars and nightclubs. Like it wasn't really always about like, we did a lot of drinking in the neighborhood. Early on drinking was like we were drinking 40s.
Yeah. Right?
We were drinking 40s in parks. And then once we got to the age where we were like, let's go pick up girls, 16. We went to nightclubs and we went to like these, really fucked up places in Queens. We used to go to this one place called Metropolis, which got shut down for stabbings. Just so many stabbings. There's just so many goddamn stabbings in this place. And they're like, and the first few, they were like, all right, let's see what happens.
Maybe it's a coincidence.
Stab me once, call me dead, I guess. And then so he, this place eventually got shut down for like 7 stabbings. And but we used to go to this place. Like on the 7th stabbing, the cops were like, "Can you just stop with stab?"
I'm just picturing like after the 4th or 5th stabbing, they're like, "You seeing a pattern?" Or I think we could let's try one more time.
A pattern? Yeah. Yep. We are seeing a pattern. You know what the pattern is? You're letting in a bunch of fucking 14-year-olds and not checking their goddamn IDs, and everyone's drinking. They would have like their nights that were like where you had to be of age, so like 18 and over nights to get in, 21, 21 to drink. Those are the rules. And then they would have their teen nights, right? But they still had liquor there on the like nights where you could get in younger. You just had to show that you were older, but you had a fake ID. So like you could just fucking get in basically and drink at any age on any given night. There are teen nights, not teen, like whatever. There's always liquor there, and you're always able to get it. So we'd go and party at this thing. Again, fights would break out and all the shit. I'll never forget this one, talking about my dad, combining the two ideas, me drinking and my dad drinking. I told my dad early on when I started drinking, he knew I was drinking, and he always said to me, if you are drunk somewhere and you need me to come pick you up, this is one of his days where he was like, this is a responsible thing to say to my son. I will stop what I am doing and I will come pick you up. I remember him saying that to me once, and I was always like, what a dad. What a great dad. I always had that in my head. I'm like, so that night, I called him from a payphone outside the place, and I said, can you come pick us up? Whoever drove us here for whatever reason, we couldn't get a ride back. I forgot what. My dad comes to pick us up, right? He comes to pick us up, and he's drunk. And he didn't say like, hey man, I'm drinking. Let me call one of your other friends' parents, because he knew the other parents. He's like, all right, I'll go get you. Comes, I go back in the club. I'm waiting for him. My dad walks in. He walks into the party in his fucking shorts and t-shirt and flip flops. I just see him. For anyone listening on the audio version of this, you're not going to see this. This is my dad's face with his glass. And he just walks in, he's looking around the room, right? And I'm like partying with my friends. And like, I didn't have a cell phone. It's like I really knew. I just figured we'd do another 10 minutes of partying, we'll go outside, or 20 minutes, whatever. I look over and I was like, oh god damn it, my dad's in the club. So I go and that isn't even the worst part of the night, because then we go there and he's like, come on, let's go. He gets us all in the car. And they're all laughing because my dad was just in the fucking nightclub as everyone was like fucking twerking on each other, and he's driving us home, and I'm like, he's got a fucking wine in the car. He's got his cup of wine in there, and I got all my friends in the car. They're all like, my dad's name is Luigi. You talking about Mario Brothers?
If I had to guess,
yeah,
I would have.
and they're like, Luigi, what are you drinking there? Because now they're all noticing. He's like, wine. Why? He's drinking some fucking cheap like Carlo Rossi or some shit. He's like, I'm drinking wine. He's like, what? Don't fucking leave me alone. He's driving, and I'll never forget it because he pulls over the car. He's like, I gotta piss. It's the middle of College Point in Queens. My dad just gets out of the car. Like, he's 5 feet away from the car, and he's just pissing on the side of the road. And I'm so goddamn embarrassed. I'm sobered up now. I'm like,
you may as well have taken over the driving.
He just pulls over and pisses, and all my friends are like, oh shit, what is he doing? And I'm my friends made fun of me for this shit for fucking years,
That's funny. My mom gave me that same speech. Like, if you're ever at a party and you do not get in a car with somebody drunk. But the difference is, like, I knew she was full of shit. I knew, like, I can't ever actually
if I call her, I'm in trouble. Yeah.
And then there was one night where I was stuck, and it was midnight, and I called the house and woke her and asked her for a ride, and she was like, "Are you out of your fucking mind?" She was like, figure it out, and like hung up. And then I think I walked home.
You out of your goddamn mind? What do you do? Yeah, my father meant that shit. Like, he also used to say to me, this is, again, my dad's an immigrant. It comes in very different time. You know what I mean? This is very different than things are now. And my dad would also be like, you want to get drunk, just tell your friends to come over and drink in the house. Yeah. He didn't care that we wanted at 13, 14 to get drunk. He was more just like, don't get yourself killed, right? Like, that was his only priority. That was it. It was just like, just the worst case scenario can't happen, but you could get drunk here, right? But meanwhile, I didn't want to invite my friends over the house. I wanted to go out and party and shit. My dad's version of the talk with me, the sex talk, was also literally, this is what he said to me. He saw me downstairs with a girl, like in the house with a girl, and he goes, "Come here." He came in the house. I didn't think you'd be home yet. He pulls me over and he goes, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I was just hanging out." And he goes, "Yeah, okay. Have fun. Don't be fucking stupid." and he left me there.
Yeah.
That's the whole talk. I never had the fucking birds and the bees. I never have a real talk with my dad. Have fun. Don't be fucking stupid.
It's so funny.
That was his talk with me.
That's the talk my mom gave me wasn't
that
much
sounds
different.
Like a nightmare.
No,
Mom's
she
giving the
just
talk?
yeah. My dad was like very hands off with shit like that.
Yeah.
But my mom just sat me down once and was like, "I don't care what you do, but if you ever bring home a baby, I'll fucking murder you." And like that was the entire.
Yeah, be a good kid and get an abortion. All right, don't fucking bring up a baby.
Since you brought it up, did you ever? We were talking about Wolf of Wall Street. Did you ever get your hands on a Quaalude?
No. I think Quaaludes. So I was born in the 80s, and I think by the time I discovered drugs and alcohol, Quaaludes were pretty hard to find.
I did one,
like late 90s.
Yep.
Yeah,
I did one once.
When did Quaaludes stop becoming a thing? I think that's like in the late 80s.
They were still around. I have a whole bit about it that like I thoroughly researched. But what happens is they got classified as a Schedule I narcotic.
Yeah,
which means that like the entire world agrees to shut them down.
Yeah.
So it was like they were still making them up into the.
What was
80s.
the main use of a Quaalude?
It was so in Wolf of Wall Street, when he takes their expired lemons, like I forget, like 502s or something.
Yeah, like they had a delayed release because it was expired.
I took one of those. Me and a friend of mine got his hands on them. Couldn't even tell you where from.
Right.
But we took a Quaalude at his house. He was having a house party, so we just took it and kept drinking and shit. And it was the hardest I think I've ever laughed in my life. Like we were just
what's the sensation
laughing
of what is the
balls off. It almost felt like an outer body experience. Like you were floating above the room, looking down at yourself, seeing somebody just couldn't stop laughing. But you also felt like oddly detached from it. I don't even know.
Sure. Yeah.
It was my point is that movie did not oversell. that movie did not oversell how much fun they were.
Right. Yeah, and then like as I got older, my friends all really got into Coke.
Yeah.
Coke became like a staple of just like that was partying. There was a lot of Coke around always. It was weed and drinking for a long time.
Yep.
And again, I'm talking about starting partying at 12.
Yeah.
So now 18, let's say 17, 18, Coke enters the fucking mix. And I think it was the same thing with mushrooms, where the first times my friends were doing it, I happened on those nights to be kind of sober or like not too drunk, to where I was like, okay, if you see it sober, you don't do it.
Yep.
If you see it, if you get into it the same time they get into it is when you do it. So like there were certain things I did. Like I remember taking like all the oxys and shit when that became fucking popular because I didn't see I didn't experience how they were behaving sober. I did it with them. But Coke, I had seen them all coked out sober, and I was like, okay, that's not going to ever be my go-to.
Yeah.
But, I never got into it like that because it just wasn't it didn't seem enjoyable because they were having a great time.
Yeah.
They were having an amazing time. But I was like, you guys look like fucking idiots.
Yeah.
But they all got into Coke. And look, there's a lot of those guys who are not alive anymore. Like a lot of the guys from that neighborhood that were in that party group, they all went on to other shit too, and a lot of them died. But at the time when we were in that invincible fucking mode, Coke became so big in that friend group. I remember, I'll never fucking forget my friend Matt. We were in Cancun, and he had done so much cocaine, he ran out of money. He had like maybe 3 days into like a 6-day spring break. We went on spring break, and dude, he comes one day. We're like, "Where's Matt?" We just didn't know where he was. We're like, "Oh God, the fucking federales got him." We're like creating all this paranoid shit in our head. Well, he just fucking, I'll never forget it. Like 6 a.m, just walks back to the hotel barefoot, and we're like, "What the fuck happened to you?" And he's like, "I gave some drug dealers a pair of Jordans." Like, you don't have shoes now. He's like, you guys have more than one pair of shoes, right? So we had to give him our shoes.
I wouldn't have given him my shoes.
Well, yeah, I did.
I would have been like,
well, how much coke do you got?
yeah, exactly. How much?
No, he came back with a lot of coke because he had a fucking crisp pair of Jordans.
Yeah, then I probably would have lent him some shoes.
Yeah. So that's what he was. He was like the rest of the time he was just like partying in flip flops the whole time. Like he because he was the first one in that group where we were like, oh, maybe there's the first time we started identifying people with addictions and problems.
Yeah,
because up until that point, no one thought anyone was addicted. Because everyone was just starting with that shit.
Yeah, it's funny. It ran pretty rampant through my old friend group, and maybe probably still does to an extent.
Yeah.
But
coke specifically?
Yeah. I got lucky with it in that, like, I did it for a few years. I had a blast doing it when I was doing it. And then it started becoming not as fun. And once it stopped becoming so much fun, I kind of just stopped doing it. Like, it wasn't, well, you know, like I got to a point where it was like, I can do it socially. I can do it night after night with these guys. Yeah. But then I had a string of like not being able to get to sleep and you're sweating so much, your pillow's soaking wet and you couldn't get comfortable and I'm taking Tylenol PM to go to bed. And then once I did that just a couple of times, I was like, this is dumb.
That's dumb. I don't want to get there.
And I stopped doing coke and I never went back to it. But I got to the, like, I could be around these old friends. I could cut it up for them. You know, I could be like, here, I would like cut them up there. Sure, I could be around it. Yeah. And I never, ever like got the itch to do it again. I don't think I've done it in over 20 years at this point.
Yeah. It was a decision for me too. It was like, oh, okay, what if I hook up tonight? This is a member thing when I was younger. I was like, what kind of drug will allow me to still perform and which one will hinder my performance? Yeah. I remember thinking that half those nights I went home alone, more than, but in my mind I was like, well, if I do, you hear all these stories about like, whiskey dick and coke dick. Yeah. Like, oh no, I'm not going to do it. That was part of my thinking too. It's like, what if I hook up?
It's funny you say that. Like, coke dick's a real thing because I had friends and I had this one dude and they were pretty successful and there would be hookers. Yeah. Like, there would just be hookers in the house at all hours. Like, I would show up. But they would like, they couldn't fuck because of the coke dick. Yeah. So it was like, now you're just paying hookers to kind of like hang out. And I would come over and I would go down to the basement to grab a beer out of the fridge and there'd be hookers playing pool.
Because no one was getting fucked. Everyone was just like hanging out with hookers.
Yeah, because was like,
when they were sober, they're like, let's get some hookers.
Yeah. And then by the time the hookers arrive, you're useless.
You said something though that makes you think, you were like, you did some coke, you had fun with it, and then you just were like, like after a while, right? Kind of fizzled out. And it makes me, it kind of makes you think like how much of like, let's say addiction, right, is like predisposed in who you are. Yeah. Because you could do it and sort of fizzle out. And I think about a lot of the guys that I, knew that did it and then really did it. And then they were like fucking cokeheads. Yeah. And how many of those guys, it's like, they didn't know it going into it. They didn't even know it when they started doing it. But how many of those guys, no matter how many fucking uncomfortable coke dick nights or how many uncomfortable disaster story nights happen, where then when they're sober, they don't go, oh, I don't want to have a night like that. They just go, I got to get back to that. Yeah. They're ignoring, because they're addicted, they're ignoring all of the false stuff. That's what addiction does, right? You don't think of the good stuff. You just think of the chase and the high. Yeah. How much of that is predisposed in a person because that person versus you, let's say. Right. I don't want to do that shit again. And the other person goes, but you remember what happened before that? Yeah. So you're thinking of the aftermath and they're thinking of fuck the aftermath. It's all worth it because the high's so good. Yeah.
Like, what's the chemistry in my brain that makes it that I could do this socially, but somebody else is an addict?
Right. Yeah. And that's fucked up. And when you're young, no one's talking about any of that shit, right? Like it's all peer pressure and it's all like what's going to be the most fun night. So everyone just fucking falls into it. Everyone's just like, all right, we're all going to Let's fucking roll the dice, right? Everyone's going to do a bunch of coke tonight, or everyone's going to drink, everyone's going to do whatever. And not even knowing, it's like the foreshadowing. If you look back at those moments, it's kind of creepy, right? It's like, how many of these guys are going to this is going to start the beginning of the end of their lives.
Yeah. It's weird. Like, I look back, I used to, like, I did it all for a handful of years.
Yeah.
I grew up, like, I very much romanticized drugs.
Yeah.
And growing up in the 80s, all the movies and the R-rated comedies,
dude.
it was like they just
cocaine
made it.
was the fucking star of the show.
And they made it look so much fun, and then it was like,
well, hold on, it is.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the problem.
No,
it is so much goddamn fun.
Yeah,
but
so,
it's the most fun. You forget everything else.
I grew up like wanting to be like that.
And
then I did it for a few years, and then I was like, I think I'm ready for the next thing.
Right.
And but I think of the nights where it was like I would take ecstasy and mushrooms and do a little bit of blow and get drunk and smoke weed, and somebody brought a nitrous tank, so let's do some whippets. And I would just do all of that shit and like think like, oh, that's normal, because everyone else around me was doing all of it. And I can't believe nobody died. Or
we got into, well, a lot of the guys did die in my experience, but
it sounds like you had bigger pussies for friends.
His pussies died. That's fine. We were fun. You know the age difference between us is when men were men versus a bunch of pussies who OD'd.
You pussies born in the 80s. Should have been born in the late 70s. Like me.
That's what they stopped making the tougher models in the 70s. We also we're in that partying era of like Oxycontin and all that shit was like so easy to get at one point. Like painkillers were so easy to get, so everyone started doing them. And I remember I did them all the time, drinking with them, and you get so fucked up, man. And it was like a great time, in your head. And you're like, but that was like blackout drunk.
Painkillers were the only thing that I ever developed a problem with.
Yeah.
And the thing with painkillers is it happens so fast. Yeah, I think there was a period in time where I was hooked.
Yeah.
I had fucked up my shoulder, like I had a shoulder injury, and I already had I used to work this job out of college. I'll say the company, I don't fucking care. I worked for John Hancock when I first got out of college.
Yeah.
And the office that I was in, it was all young dudes, all out of college. They're trying to like get you at a young age. And it was my first job in the city. My manager also dealt me painkillers.
Yeah.
And
they were so easy to get at one point.
They would like, agents would be like doing coke in the bathroom and then coming back. It's like, how are you going to dial 200 numbers in 6 hours?
Yeah.
Right. So it was, so when I fucked my shoulder up, and I already had a direct line to painkillers, and I went to the ER and I was in so much pain, they gave me a shot of morphine. And then, I left the ER on another planet, and I was still in pain, and I went home and I started just gobbling all different kinds of painkillers, and I lost legitimately, I have an entire week of my life that is a blackout.
Yeah.
I have an entire week that is gone.
Thing, man.
All I remember was it must have been springtime, because I had to go to my dad's for a Passover Seder. And I just remember sitting in a chair with my head down.
You're like, God damn, Jews are so depressing. Oh, God.
Like just staring into this thing of matzo ball soup that I was never going to eat. And my stepmom was like, you don't look well. Why don't you go lie down? And that's it. That's the only memory I have of an entire week of my life.
Yeah,
and then,
if you're down in a funk, the last thing you want to do is sit at a Passover dinner and everyone tell them the story. Everyone's got the story. You're like, oh goddamn, this is so depressing. Yeah. That was the only time I ever blacked out, because I was drinking with those, because I don't black out from drinking.
Yeah,
like I could drink way too much.
No, I've never blacked out from drinking in my life.
On Percocets and shit like that. Yeah, man. I remember being in Mexico, being able to get them like you just walk into a pharmacy in Mexico.
Yep.
And you go, hey, can I get some burgers? They're like, yeah, how many do you want? Unlimited number. They wouldn't even cap it. They'd be like, yeah, do you want 100?
Yeah.
Buy 100. And they were just like selling them to you. And I think they were just like pocketing half the money too. It was fucking wild, man.
Don't tell me Mexican pharmacies aren't on the up and up.
No, yeah,
Don't spoil the dream.
Mexican pharmacies and bungee jumping in Mexico, all bad ideas. But then then they fucking scaled the whole thing back. They made it so easy.
Now it's impossible
because the fucking doctor was just writing those scripts, probably getting so much fucking money from the pharma companies, and then they were like, "Oh, we started an epidemic."
Yeah. And now they'll give you a prescription for like 4 pills.
Yeah, now even if you need
you have your knees replaced, and they're like, "Here's
take
2
some
Percocet."
Tylenol.
Yeah,
they tell you to take some fucking. You're like, God damn it, because they started a fucking epidemic, an opioid epidemic, and fucking heroin came back because of that.
Yeah,
because then people were like, "What's the opioid I could get on the street?" And fucking heroin, which was off the fucking street in New York, was really not a thing anymore. Thinking about how much it was a thing in the 70s and 80s, it was really kind of gone besides certain pockets, and it came back tenfold. And then heroin and meth just came back and fucking took over and got all those guys.
Isn't that crazy?
That were doing that shit. That were doing fucking prescription pills.
You can still get that, but the Quaaludes, they're drawing the line. So we can't have the whole planet laughing.
Were Quaaludes addictive?
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what?
Like,
probably, because I'm still, no, I don't. It's like a downer. I'm still thinking about it. I'm still like, if I could go back in time to one day, I would go take, I would plan that day better.
Right. I would relive that every day. If I could.
I remember after I got all 4 wisdom teeth out at once.
Yeah.
And the dentist gave me a full bottle of Percocet.
Yeah.
And I took it home, and it was my ex-wife now, but I was married at the time. And I got them all pulled on a Friday, and I sat there all weekend with bags of ice and Tylenol. Yeah. And I wouldn't touch the Percocet. And my ex was like, what's like, I can't figure you out. You now have a legit prescription and permission, and you probably need them. Yeah. And now you won't even touch them. And I sat there with the ice on my face, and I was like, I'm not wasting those on pain. Well, those are for when I feel. Those are for when I feel better. Like, those are for next week when we watch a movie.
Yeah, that's for when you are giving me a problem. That's when you're causing me pain. Yeah. That's what I'm going to take. Yeah. That, right. Like that's what people were doing. So that's what people would do. Or they were taking a few but had leftovers, and then it was in their cabinets, and then some fucking little asshole like me and my friends were fucking taking them. I had a friend who got kicked out of high school. My best friend got kicked out of high school because he was selling Vicodin. Yeah, in the high school, in his senior year, was right about to graduate. And he got kicked out of the high school because he was. It was just fucking everywhere at the time. That was the progression of my drug years. Was like it was weed and liquor. It was into coke, and then it was my friend group. I mean, not necessarily myself personally, but like, and then it was all the painkillers, and that shit was fucking fun. Yeah, painkillers were fun.
They were a lot of fun,
but they were so goddamn addicting. I mean, people get, like you said, people just get addicted when they're just taking them for pain. Yep. You know?
Yeah, it's quick. It happens fast.
It's fucked up. You know what's fucked up about this is like, why didn't I drink? I drink every episode. Why wasn't I drinking today when they're in the drinking episode?
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
I feel like I missed that, and I wish I would take a fucking Quaalude. Let's listen. That'll be the ultimate episode. You know what I want to do? I want to have like a fat high show. I want to get like I want to get high and eat a bunch of like pizza. you go find those fucking Quaaludes. I'll do what I do best. I'll get the fat shit.
Buddy, I wish they would just start making them again. It's like, why?
Let's bring them back. What was ever so bad about Quaaludes?
The joke I used to do a joke like why were the good people at Quaaludes the only one that took that Schedule 1 seriously? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, meth is a Schedule 1 narcotic. Right. How come, like, what did the meth people do? Like, they just decided, like, oh, we're just going to sell our ingredients at Rite Aid and let the people make it at home for themselves.
Right.
Like, that's it. Just give me the ingredients to Quaaludes then. It's funny. I have
Breaking Bad, your fucking old Quaaludes.
I have no desire like to ever do coke again or LSD or any of the shit that I used to do. It's like I'll still smoke weed and the occasional microdose of mushrooms.
Sure.
But if you put a Quaalude in front of me right now, I would be like, fuck.
Do you think you're romanticizing it? Because you only did it a few times?
Yeah, I only did it once. Yeah,
you only
maybe.
did it the one time?
Maybe.
Or do you think, no, it was actually that good?
But if you ever talk to like an old head, like if you ever talk to somebody who lived, they all...
No one doesn't love Quaaludes.
No.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a great point.
Yeah.
Everyone has horror stories about everything.
Yeah.
And they were just like, as long as I was safe, I just fucking Quaaludes were great.
Yep.
Everyone loves Quaaludes. Yeah, I think that's maybe that's the whole purpose of us doing the show, is to get popular enough to start a campaign to bring back Quaaludes.
I would. I don't lend my name to a lot of causes, but
yeah,
that one feels near and dear to my heart.
I won't even round up the dollar at CVS, but if we can get Quaaludes back. All right, man. That it's a bit too much on all the socials, a bit too much podcast on all the socials, on YouTube, wherever podcasts are found. Thanks for tuning in. This is a bit too much.